Hello, this is Dr. Garrett Castleberry, Program Director for Communication, Media, and Ethics here at Mid-America Christian University. And I am here talking to our COM 2143 digital media literacy students about our Week 2 video prompt. All right, and so we are getting into these video discussions, and for some of us, this is starting to become a bit of a rhythm as we move through curriculum in the comm major, and for others this could be your inaugural experience with this exercise. So thank you for your patience, thank you for your willingness to join us in this experimentation. Already we can report tons of positives from this activity, and we're looking forward to the benefits we will take from said activities in the future, right? Not just for the degree program, but for you all as burgeoning communication professionals. In Week 2, I want to jump right into some terminology that we cannot ignore. It has been circulating in many different forms in our contemporary culture. All right, I could say online culture, but there are terms that relate to social media and online digital experiences that apply to us in the real world. They affect the here and the now, the physical world, even though we spend time talking about them in digital spaces. And the chief term that comes to mind specifically is that elusive phrase, fake news. All right, and so the first time we taught this course, we had a deliberate purpose about how to talk about that term, that phrase, and it made sense then. But as language goes in all cultures, but particularly ours, right? In Western culture, in the U.S., language is like popular culture in that it morphs, right? We have what we refer to as the denotative or primary meaning of a term, and the connotative or the secondary meanings. Secondary meanings, connotative meanings could include slang and so on. These subcultural variations of what a word or words mean, the values they hold. Okay, this is how some words can be sort of in vogue or fashionable, and then over time they fall out of fashion. It's because of the cultural work that the use of those terms do. And so this ties directly into communication studies as a discipline. You get that exposure in our media culture and social influence class, as well as some of the other courses we offer here. But on the subject of fake news, right? So back to the point about our investigation of this term. It had a relatively straightforward history a little less than a year ago. However, fast forward to the present, future, right? Whenever this is, perhaps it's consumed in a future past. This term has been redefined for millions of people, okay? So it traditionally meant one thing, and it has been taken, what we refer to in cultural studies as reappropriated, and it's been recycled with a kind of not just an alternative meaning, a reverse meaning, all right? So it used to mean one thing, and then it's been taken and recirculated, and now it means something entirely different. So we want to get to the bottom of this. The best way we can do it is to research. You always notice in the comment sections now, people want to sound like they're being smart when they say, do your research. But what does that even mean, okay? Where do we start? And that can be a source of a lot of our miscommunication, is that sometimes we are going to different sources or leaning on different kinds of materials or voices to inform us rather than sharing a sort of center. So I have located a center for us, and all of this is a bit of a long build-up, but it has purpose behind it, because, hear me out, here we go. We want to take this idea we start with our Week 2 video discussion, the idea I'm about to unpack, and we want to carry it into at least the next week, and we will see if we have the juice to carry it even into our discussion in Week 4, okay? So a multi-part project that we are developing here. Digital media literacy. I went back into the archives of some research overusing the term now, some materials I looked for when exploring how we could approach developing this course. And one of the tertiary materials that didn't make the cut yet, but is still on our plate, is an interesting podcast episode from KCRW that talks about, actually, podcasts are discussions, verbalized discussions. It talks about the phenomenon of fake news, right? And so I was looking over there and then exploring some of their links, some of their references, and then I ended up at a different website altogether. I'll read it once, show you what it looks like when I clicked on the link, but I'm going to share this link right below or above in the D2L newsfeed. But this link is called A Field Guide, the title of the website is also the title of a book in progress, or a book that has an optional online version, and I'm sure by this point they have shifted toward a fully complete bound version. A Field Guide to Fake News and Other Information Disorders. Okay, so the website is fakenews.publicdatalab.org, if I can read the small print. All right, and so this is what that website looks like. It has this, glossy little, almost advertising-esque title to it: A Field Guide to Fake News and Other Information Disorders. And then if you scroll through it, there is a rich cavalcade of hyperlinks, alternative sources. I don't mean alternative sources like alternative facts, okay? I think I'm getting into some subconscious wordplay here, and I hate to lose or confuse anyone, unlike some people out there that thrive on losing and confusing people online. So here are some hyperlinks to some terrific sources, but look at the black line. I'll read it for us. Download the guide. Okay, so there are some important links. Ultimately, if you download it, we can access the entire digital textbook, an open access version of this book in this form. And they could have, evolved this by now, but for now we have access to this one. Try to get the colors here, and so if we scroll down this PDF that we'll download, 216 pages. This is a full-length book. It is the official Field Guide to Fake News and Other Information Disorders. What I want you all to do is practice following these links as I've shared. Access and download the full PDF file to a secure location, right, wherever you're downloading files to. Hopefully not just your phone, but I know a lot of us are working on our mobile student skills. But what I want us to do is then go into the table of contents page. Gives us the preview of all the content in this book. All right. There are several units, or I guess several chapters, but the way it's organized, it looks like units and then chapters within units. But there are chapters with chapter titles and then sub-questions. I think of those questions as chapters, and then I think of the chapter headings as unit headings, but that's apparently wrong, right? Just because I think that doesn't mean that's what it is. So what I want us to do, I want you to locate this, I want you to practice linking on it, okay, for the first part of the exercise. I want you to locate and download the book, scan through it, and here's what we want from you. We are going to stay relatively brief in week 2 because we want to be in prep mode for how we can apply this in week 3 and maybe, no guarantees, week 4. Okay, and we'll see how this plays out in week 3 to determine what we want to do with the content in week 4. So here's what you do. You follow those steps. None of that involves your video prompt. And then once you locate the file and skim through it, this is going to become a first come, first serve type of option. I want us to each think about selecting a chapter and then one of these question sections per chapter. And I think of these as sub chapters is what I'd like to, I guess, call them, because they are hefty sections, right? So for example, chapter 1 says mapping fake news hotspots on Facebook, and then the questions that follow, the first one starts on page 20 of this online open source book. What publics does fake news animate on Facebook? All right, that's a question that they seek to answer within the next few pages. And then you jump all the way from page 20 to page 40 for the next question. Number 2, how may the trajectory of a fake news story be traced on Facebook? Okay, 20 pages per, that reads a lot to me like a chapter. So I want each of you, and it's a first come, first serve, to locate one of these question subchapters that you would like to explore in the coming weeks. But for the sake of diversity and for the sake of shared communal learning, I want each of us to tackle a different section, a different question, all right? So we may have multiple people on the same chapter as it's arranged, but we need everyone tackling a different question section, all right? So we don't want a bunch of repetition, although that would be healthy too. So it's a first come, first serve on our week 2 video discussion posts. Don't be afraid to skim ahead. Doesn't mean you have to read everything, but what we want you to do is read enough to locate and decide on which chapter and sub-chapter, we're calling it, or question you are going to tackle. Tell us that specifically, and then maybe preview how you might, why you selected that, and what you might be interested in learning about that question and this phenomenon of fake news, okay? And so thinking ahead, this is not our official week 3 response, but what we will then do is read it in full and break down that content in a presentable fashion. Short order, keep it simple, okay? It'll be limited to our video discussion area, but we will be adding these little mini sections to our weekly reading, but this is your opportunity to pick what you want to read. If you go on the message board on the video discussion post area and check out your classmates' posts, if someone has already selected the one you have your eyes on, move on to selection number 2, okay? So we don't want duplicates. First come, first serve on that, but let's hit as many of these as we can. This is an excellent opportunity to gain more insight and to cut down the confusion about this and other terms like fake news, alternative facts, right? This type of cultural terminology that can either inform us or it can mislead us. Both, all right? That is problematic, okay? And it creates issues sometimes intentionally, right? It skews our ability to come together, right? So it can have a polarizing effect. Language can. That's a communication 101 takeaway right there. So check out the links, find the content, report back to us, and looking forward to our choices and hearing about these sections from you all in the coming weeks. Thank you so much.